Shalom, thank you for joining me. I'm going to finish up Matthew chapter 12, and this begins verse 46 to the end, verse 50, just a short little section. But this section is referred to as a conversation about Jesus, his mother, and his brothers. And it asks the question, where Jesus even, someone asked the question, who is the family of Jesus? Well, here it explains it, and this is very fascinating. Verse 46, while Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside, wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside, wanting to speak to you." He replied to them, "Who is my mother, and who are my brothers?" Pointing to his disciples, he says, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." This is interesting. Now, this passage is also mentioned in Mark chapter 3 and in Luke chapter 8. Mark chapter 3 adds something really interesting in this. It describes Jesus' mother, Mary, right? His brothers and sisters. And yes, Jesus had brothers and sisters because Jesus was just the firstborn. And then after that, Mary and Joseph had other sons and other daughters. Mary was not a perpetual virgin, no matter what anybody else says, no matter what anybody else teaches. And I don't care what kind of ecclesiastical clothing they wear as they're teaching it. Just because I'm wearing a yarmulke doesn't mean anything special. The simple truth of the matter is Jesus had brothers and sisters, and he just happened to be the firstborn. But Mark chapter 3 records something interesting in verse 21. It says Jesus' mother and his brothers and sisters came to get him because they thought, and I like the way it puts it, he was out of his mind. It's interesting. In John chapter 7, we discover a little comment that John puts in there that even Jesus' own brothers did not believe him. So here is his own family. They're embarrassed of Jesus. They think he's crazy. He's running around saying he's the Messiah. He's running around saying he is greater than Jonah, greater than Solomon. And he's doing all these things, but people are thinking, man, he must have lost it. It's interesting how people can overlook the good deeds that a person does when they think you're crazy. Okay? I just think that's interesting. Jesus' own mother was there. When the angel Gabriel told Mary, "You're going to give birth, and it's going to be the Messiah," Luke says Mary kept these things in her heart, and she pondered them. She wondered over them. She thought about them a lot. Later, when the shepherds came and worshiped the baby Jesus on the night he was born, the gospel says Mary kept these things in her heart, and she pondered on them. She was trying to make sense of them. So maybe all of Jesus' life, Mary, was still a mother. She had an infant to feed and clean. She had a toddler to teach how to go potty and how to talk and how to feed himself, how to dress himself. Jesus became a little boy. Jesus became a teenager. Jesus became a young adult. And then eventually around the age of 30, he began his professional ministry as an itinerant rabbi. But his brothers and his mother, they were just never quite sure. Incidentally, after Jesus was raised from the dead, there was never a doubt anymore. In Acts chapter 1, we discover while all of these 120 believers were up in the upper room waiting for the Holy Spirit, guess who else was sitting up there in that room waiting for the Holy Spirit along with them because they were now believers? Mary, his sisters, his brothers. In fact, the book of James and the book of Jude in the New Testament are written by James, the brother of Jesus, and Jude, a brother of Jesus. So they became believers. You would have to say they did not commit the unforgivable sin. They were forgiven. And notice how Jesus said, who is my mother? Who is my brothers? And he says something fascinating. Whoever does the will of my Father in heaven, that's my brother, my sister, my mother. Are you doing the will of the Father? Because if you are, we're related. If not, You need to come to the family. You need to receive Jesus. You need to be born again. And you will be part of the family. Thanks for joining me.